Everyone, well, us chosen few, we appear to be dropping like flies. So I've got apologies for absence from Councillor Sam Smith, Councillor Martin Smith, Councillor Robinson Payne, Councillor Graham Pope and Councillor Roxanne Ellis. And Councillor Strong is here as a substitute for so many people. Are there any other apologies? No, that's fine. Okay, thank you. So we will be having a presentation, so if we could just do some of the standing items first. So we've got the minutes from the Overview and Scrutiny Committee of the 29th of July here. Are there any matters of accuracy? I'm going to take that they're not. So can I have I'm moving a motion that we approve them as a correct record. Can I have a seconder? Thank you, Rachel Ellis. The only thing I've got as a matter of arising is that I understand Ben sent out an email about the date for the working group for the 28th of October, and so far he's only had 2 replies. So if people could reply to Ben, that would be helpful. Thank you. So next, do we have any declarations of interest for today's meeting? Oh, we have to vote. I always forget we have to vote on them. Sorry, we have to vote on the minutes now. So is everyone happy to vote that they're a correct record? Yeah. Right. That's at least twice. I've forgotten to do that now. Okay, so no declarations of interest. So first on the agenda then, we're having one of our regular partner reviews, and tonight we've got the pleasure of the South Notts Place-based partnership. I'm going to let them all introduce themselves. They're going to give a presentation that they tell me is 11 minutes. So if you sat there looking at your watch, that's how long it's going to be. Thank you, Paddy.
So I'm Paddy Tipping. I'm the chair of the South Notts Place-based partnership. I've been doing it for about a year. We've got a presentation that we need to be really sharp on because there's lots of things we want to get across. But please do interrupt and ask questions as necessary. I'm joined by Hazel Liner from the ICB, Helen Smith, who's the programme director, and you all know Lance. And let me just put on record how grateful we are for the time and the energy and the useful information that he puts in, and he'll buy me a drink afterwards. So let me hand over straight to Hazel.
Okay, so that's just a bit of an outline in terms of what we're doing as part of the presentation today. I won't read it out, but it sort of speaks for itself. Sorry. Can you hear me?
Oh, sorry. Can you move the mic to you? And I know it's difficult, but if you try not to turn away from it to speak to the slides.
Okay, sorry, Okay, so this is a bit of an outline of the primary care networks that we've got across Nottinghamshire, and you can see that from the outline in the blue circle, there's 6 primary care networks that are part of that form part of the South Nottinghamshire makeup, and that probably equates to around about 15 GP practices that we have as part of South Notts, and that just gives us an opportunity now to work in partnership together. This slide just gives you a bit of an understanding of just the number of key partners that we've got who we are working with now, and I think I counted them up earlier, and I think there's around about 23, so quite a good number to be working with. Okay, I think I'm going to hand over to Helen. Thank you.
Thanks, Hazel. So whilst you'll have had the pack prior to the meeting showing how nationally the integrated care system and place-based partnerships formed, one of the things that we wanted to work on that was important to ensure all colleagues wanted to work together was to really illustrate why it was important to work together. And this diagram here was something that was quite pivotal in the partnership, really working out, actually, we do need to work together. So the diagram here shows all the things that influence our health and well-being and ultimately our healthy life expectancy. So if health just worked by themselves, we'd only impact 20% of the outcome of an individual. But actually, by working with other colleagues that influence all the factors around our health and well-being, we can have a bigger impact on the population that we're all working with. Now, the next slide is another concept that our public health partners have worked with an organisation called Frameworks, which is how we talk about what we used to say as the wider determinants of health, which we're now calling the building blocks of health, because by using this language, it's felt it leads to more action. So we can talk about when something's missing, we need to fill that gap. So it's similar to the last diagram where we can see all the things that build up to someone's health and well-being. But again, this really allows us to look and work with communities to describe the importance of those wider determinants of health in more plain language, and allows us to identify actions to take that will support the health and well-being of our population. So looking at money and resources, are we connecting people up with our advice on prescription service, citizens' advice? Are we looking at how people can access good quality food, so working with local food clubs and food banks, and not just assuming people can afford good quality food and access it too. So as we formed as a partnership, we were looking at how we should work together and using the principle of equity. So looking at how we needed to put extra effort into areas where there were higher health inequalities. So again, working with our public health colleagues, you can see here a heat map showing the areas of highest health inequalities across our South Nottinghamshire footprint. And what we chose to do was, because we've got 4 district and borough partners working across our footprint, is choose one area in each of the constituent boroughs. So you can see in Rushcliffe, it's a very light colour, and the area, the darkest area is Cotgrave. In Broxtowe, Eastwood is the one in blue. The green one there is Hucknall, and the purple circle is Arnold, but also noting Netherfield is another high area of health inequality in the Gedling Borough. And what you can see there is some of the data that our public health colleagues drew out to highlight some of the significant health inequalities in the Arnold area. And what this focus has allowed us to do is look at all the partners working on those footprints and really work with our local community organisations to build up that continuum of support for people living in our neighbourhoods. Now, as Paddy alluded to at the beginning, Gedling have been a really active partner within our partnership working, and there's a number of things that we could talk to you about today. We've chosen 4 key areas to talk to you about, and one of them is the work that we've been doing in Calisic. Rather than us talk to you about this, we've actually created a video that really illustrates how we've worked there in particular, but the principles and the ways of working that have developed. So I'm going to hand over to Lance, who's the technical expert in getting the video working for you. Thank you.
Just bear with me.
And this is the bit that's 11 minutes long.
In 2021, South Nottinghamshire was one of the place-based partnership that worked with other partners, and they secured some funding from NHS England. So that funding was used towards the health inequalities work in Calisic. And Calisic was identified, I think, by the local borough council through the data and intelligence. It was a place where they felt they could have the most impact.
So with this piece of work, what was quite unique is that we didn't have a particular cohort in the community that we were working with. So it wasn't aimed at older people or younger people, it was cross-community working. So we had initiatives right down in the children's centre working with parents and toddlers and babies, and we had work with families in the breakfast club, in the food club and in the holiday club, and then we've also had intergenerational workshops over at Coppice Lodge with the residents there and children from the local school, and we've also had the community group over in the Redmond Lounge, Seduce Our Home, where we've had the social events. So it's really been across the community, working with all generations to try and help them to live happier and healthier lives. And that's quite unique because that wasn't a normal way of working. Quite often the organisations that came together would work probably in silos or maybe with one per organisation. But this is really about the collective and about understanding that we've got limited resources, limited capacity, but actually by pooling it together, we're able to actually, make a difference and to really try and understand what it's like living in this community.
One of the things that was sort of coming out through consultation with the public was that there's very little opportunity for the community to come together. Few community facilities in the area, and those that are here tend to be fairly booked up. So, and that was coming through quite strongly. So, as a result of that, we've sort of identified this area, Field, which is in the middle of Gedling, and we've set up a weekly friendship group. All welcome, obviously, warm welcome, hopefully. Within this area, as I say, we do a general knowledge, and some of the older ones are particularly good and rock proud of their knowledge. I'm absolutely the opposite. As I say, we play this giant card game where it's high and low, Bruce Forsyth game, if anybody's old enough to remember that. And then today, we've got a little bowling going on, so that's an opportunity to get people moving, get them out of the chair, and it's a laugh. And I think I was told, take the balls down and practice because I'm not very good today. As you'd expect. I think one of the issues we've probably come across is because it's not this central place for people to meet, it's difficult to get the message out there. One of the things that was coming through is that agencies struggle to engage with the local population. And maybe the local population struggle to engage with agencies. Again, this is lack of opportunity, lack of buildings and facilities in the area really. So hopefully we've had guests from various agencies turn over working with the social prescribers. They're bringing some of their client base, and hopefully it's an opportunity to just support the community in any way we can really.
We started the free breakfast club Monday, Wednesday, Friday during the school holidays, and we wanted it to be very much where families, they're not just children, that the parents with them as well. So they come Monday, Wednesday, Friday, have a hot breakfast, but also we would do packed lunches so they could take them away with them, including the parents, so that's 2 meals a day. And we've had a really good take-up, but we've also had a lot of support from other organisations, partnerships. Everybody's been really supportive. So obviously we're feeding the families that come, we're feeding them with hot food, we're feeding them with lunches that have been taken away. But more than anything, we're finding that we're addressing other issues. So, for example, we've had some children that have been socially awkward, that it's really helped them with the confidence. We've had, the children have made amazing friendships. We've had parents suffering with real issues like anxiety problems that we've been able to make friendships with. But it's a big community thing where we're seeing grandmas making friends with other young parents, and they've got friendships. So we've got some real strong relationships being made as well, which is really good.
It's benefited me and my child massively beyond words. We can't thank the team enough for everything they have done. They don't even know they've done it themselves. Mentally, like to get us out to do something, even just for that morning, it just gets you set off ready for your day, and it's very enjoyable, and it's just amazing.
As part of the Community Health Initiative, we organised some intergenerational workshops for the community, from really young to really old, to boost their health and happiness.
partners. They consisted of planting workshops, board game workshops, art workshops, and even bird box making. And we also ran a community event, and we had about 800 attendees. And actually, the biggest thing was being able to invite health services along to showcase what they do and engage with the community more. So the benefits we've seen from our workshops is the positivity from the older people in terms of reliving their childhoods, feeling like they're connecting with children again, and it's given them a bit of life, a bit of energy. And the children have really enjoyed listening to stories from older people, and I think for us, the stigma of young people and old people and bringing them together has been a real positive for families to join in, so the parents do the artwork, not just the kids.
We've got the allotment here at Kilsyth. We gained access to this in December last year through the Kilsyth work. And since then we've had schools coming out to the site and basically just connecting with nature, learning about veg and fruit, and just generally just getting out from the environment of the school and helping their mental health in that respect. And we just kind of just let them free roll on doing whatever they wish, what they like, what they enjoy, what they want to see, and just let them develop the programme. We don't want to put too much restriction around it. It's more the fact that we're glad that they're out and that they're outdoors and you know, just connecting with the programme itself. But it just naturally happens, really. Like within a group of young people, that you would spot the leaders, and we've asked them to see if they would then be either the buddies or whether they would be the advocates for future cohorts to come in. Even they could run a session or help run a session or help communicate out into the community about what green social prescribing is, what the benefits are, and to just get involved, really. And that's where we want to see it progressing. There's a whole breadth of issues that these children that come here have, but actually when they come together, it's lovely to see, and it's empowering them to see that they can make a difference and that they can have the freedom to take ownership of their own health, which is what green social prescribing is, because it's not just the programme that we run or any of the other green social prescribing providers. It's the fact that once they learn that nature is such a powerful tool to assist them with their health, they can do it independently. They can find green spaces, they can go for a walk, they can do gardening at home. They are empowered to take control, which I think is one of the most important things that we're trying to achieve.
Project is well received in the community itself, and it's popular with the parents, everybody. So we know, and we have got a good relationship with the community itself, and the district council, the county council, and everybody likewise. But what we're here to do, what we offer, is an open access session, which means it's there for people to access openly, voluntary relationship. You don't have to be here if you don't want to. But we seem to get about 20 to 30 young people come every week. So we're getting quite a few numbers, so that tells you the story itself, really. But what it's there to do is to provide a forum for them to meet friends, have fun, develop new friendships, get involved with some positive activities like you can see.
At home, just chilling in my room. So I like this so I can come out and like do things with people my age. It's nice to be here, and then it's just like, at the same time, it's just like a bunch of young people together. I'd rather just come here and do something with my time instead of messing around on the street.
Also, in the fact that the parents know that their young people, their children, come here and they know it's a safe environment to come to. And the other thing about this project is it has an impact on their well-being and self-esteem in the long run. I put a programme together each term and I asked young people what things they'd like to do.
And we came on a trip with the youth club. Kilsyth to later class. Something you can look forward to and like things that you can do after that.
Do you go every week to the youth bus or when you can?
Every week.
But I think working
working in this way and really positive. It's a different way of working, and actually it hasn't always been about the target, you know, getting numbers of people into a service or putting on so many interventions. It's about how we can work differently together collectively, and that's something that perhaps in the past we've not always been able to do, but this piece of work's been able to kind of change the way that we work, and you know, that partners work together, and that we deliver health initiatives, and it isn't just about getting people into services, but actually understanding what the community want and how we can enable that to happen for the community.
So by taking the time to understand what strengths were in the neighbourhood, what challenges, any gaps, it just gave a really good shift from reactive care, which is what we've traditionally done, to a more proactive and preventative model.
There we go. So it's over to me now. So I hope you enjoyed the video. And as Helen said, we thought it was a really good example, rather than us just talking here for half an hour, just to see a video and actually see some of the collaborative work that we've been doing in the community, in that case Killiswick. And how did that happen? There was a bit of funding that we managed to get access to, but what we really did was coordinate the work of partners and got them to focus on that community and that area, and use our own resources to really do that engagement. And that's ongoing. That's continuing as we speak. So there's a couple of things I just want to talk about. So I work for Gedling Borough Council, but I also sit on the South Notts Place-Based Partnership Board. I represent the council on that board. I also lead on community development for the partnership, so that's a theme of the partnership that's been agreed. And also a lead for integrated neighbourhood working. So again, that Killiswick work, when we say integrated neighbourhood working, a bit of jargon, but actually what we mean is how do we work together to support local neighbourhoods. Some of the work that we've done, particularly around community development, is about growing resource of our partners to support the voluntary and community sector. So just before COVID, the NHS started to commission what was called social prescribers and link workers. So the role of link workers was to identify opportunities, activities in the community for patients to be signposted into, to support themselves, and really look to lead a more healthy lifestyle, look to improve their well-being. So that was fine, but what we identified as a partnership, in order to support the link workers, we also need some support in the community to work with those groups. Because it's all very well casting the patients out to the community and expecting the voluntary sector to kind of pick them up and work with them. So we identified a need for some community development worker support. So the council was commissioned in 2020 to employ a worker, and that was across the whole of South Notts. We got a management fee to do that, to start to look at how could we work with the voluntary sector and link up better with the social prescribing system that was being commissioned by primary care networks. So that proved quite successful, and what we learnt was there was a need for support, there was need for capacity building, need for advice, a need for an understanding for groups, you know, what it means to take more vulnerable people into their activities, and that was the role of the community development worker. So the story is, in doing that work, we've evaluated it, we've learnt from it, we managed to get additional resource from the system, from the NHS system. We moved on to 2 workers across South Notts in 21-22, and now we're pleased to say, now as of this year, we've got 5 of those workers working across South Notts, and that's around, you know, evaluating the work we're doing, showing the outcomes, and actually influencing the integrated care system and public health to put more resource into this work programme. So that's really important. And what we've also done is, well, we've actually transferred the hosting of that work over to the voluntary sector, so our local CVS colleagues. So they're now leading on that support work for the local voluntary sector, and in Gedling, but also across the wider South Notts area as well. So what does this mean for Gedling? So this means we now have a dedicated community development worker just for us. So that's funded through public health. And this is Andy. He appeared on the video. There's a picture of him on the screen. So Andy works for Newark and Sherwood CVS. So that's one of our local CVS partners. But his role is dedicated to work in the Gedling area. And there's a number of things that you can see on the screen there, which he's dedicated to do, really. So it's very much working with our local community groups, building their capacity, signposting those groups for support if they're going to take in new patients and new members of the community to support their well-being. There's a bit of governance advice, particularly if they want to access funding, how do they go about that? And it's also about linking those grassroots communities up with our NHS partners, our social prescribing link workers, county council, and other partners as well, about utilising that resource we have. And where possible, identifying gaps in provision and trying to identify, well, is there a new resource that we can put in place? So one of the things that Andy's done, you saw on the video, we set up a new friendship group for Kilisick, which is ongoing. So when we talk about gaps, that's around addressing social isolation in that community and giving more vulnerable people an opportunity to meet and engage in activities and hopefully not spend time in the NHS system. That's what it's about as much as anything else, and provide an opportunity to connect with people in their community. And in terms of Andy's work, so these are local organisations that he's been engaging with over the last few months. So you recognise a few of them from Cornwall to Evergreens in Ravenshead, Daybrook Bowls Club, Newstead Centre, Eagle's Nest in Arnold, Bestwood Miners Welfare, to name a few. So there's a real breadth across the borough in terms of the work he's doing. So he's helping to work as a catalyst for projects, but he's also just dropping in and seeing if there's any support these groups need. Another piece of work I just want to mention is the partnership work that's happening with our leisure centres. So as part of the coordinated work in Arnold we're looking to do now, the leisure centres, the Gedling leisure centres are doing some joint work with Highcroft and Stenhouse surgeries. So there's a little bit of funding provided by the integrated care system. Priority for the system is cardiovascular disease and trying to prevent more cases with regard to CVD. So what we're looking to do is work with our GP partners who will identify patients most at risk of cardiovascular disease, and they'll be signposting those patients to us as a leisure service, and we'll do some one-to-one work with those patients to build their confidence up and introduce them to a leisure centre environment. And to facilitate that, the funding is going to be used to provide 3 months free memberships for those individuals. So as part of their induction to the leisure centre environment, it won't cost them anything. The system's paid for it. They've been identified with their health needs, and we'll work with them one-to-one to try and build their confidence. And the aim is for them to take up a leisure membership or use a leisure centre as a long-term opportunity to improve their health and well-being. Lots of opportunities. There's classes, there's social connections, there's going to the gym, there's swim as well. So, but it's recognising these are people that need a bit of support. They're not the individuals who'd necessarily think, I'll go down the leisure centre. But actually what we'll do is we'll meet with them, we'll work with them over that 3-month period to try and give them the confidence. And actually the opportunity for us is, on the one hand, we'll reduce their attendance at GPs, but also actually increase our membership at leisure centres. So there's a win-win for us as agencies, but also it's the benefit of the individual as well around improving their lifestyle. So I'm going to hand back to Helen, who's going to talk about some engagement work with young people.
Thanks. So this is the 4th example we wanted to talk to you about. This piece of work was initiated by Councillor Henry Wheeler. So he had a real interest in mental well-being of children and young people, and he wanted to understand what children and young people felt about their mental health and well-being, but also how they knew how to access support if they were struggling. So as a partnership, we got various colleagues working together. So Gedling Borough Council, Positively Empowered Kids, the Commissioners of Children and Young People's Mental Health Services, and the Youth Service to look at actually going out to 3 of the youth centres in Gedling for one session to listen to the young people and really hear and engage what their self-esteem was like, where they would get support if they needed it, and really just spend that time listening. And then a month later, we organised for a variety of providers, so you can see Not Alone, BU Nots, the mental health support teams in schools, all came along and just were there for the young people to engage with and sort of build the relationships and get them to understand and ask questions of these services. And what was really, really interesting is we had very different feedback from the 3 different centres, and really noticed quite a difference in Red Hill. And what we found was we're going to continue a kind of monthly drop-in to each of those centres to keep that listening and keep those relationships with those adults that are going in there, and do some more specific partnership working in Red Hill with a new mental health support team in the school, with also youth justice colleagues, so to really work, again, in that partnership spirit with the people that we feel we'd have the most benefit of working together with. So I'm just going to hand over to Lance for the final slide, and then we'll be here for any questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Helen. So just next steps, what's the partnership going to be doing next? So we've talked about some of the activities, engagement with the community we've been doing. So I think it's important to mention there's a lot of activity the council's currently doing. There's a real opportunity to get our health partners involved in that, the power of partnership and using our joint resources. So there's a piece of work we're currently doing called Strengthen Community, which is funded through UK Shared Prosperity Fund, which is around building the capacity to support our voluntary sector. So already talked about community development worker and Andy that's supported through the partnership. Is how we link all this up, really. So there's some real opportunity to get our health partners involved in that work to support the wider sector. There's certainly some strategic work around the Carlton Towns Board, Ambition Arnold as well, and certainly trying to get our health partners on board with that. Those vision and priorities that we're trying to achieve for those areas is really important, because again, collectively, we've got lots of resource, haven't we, to make a difference to our communities. And we also want to enhance our own leisure provision. I talked about some practical engagement around participating with patients and trying to get them in our leisure centres, but we've got some plans as a council to improve our facilities. Cabinet agreed proposals to look at a new Carlton Leisure and Community Wellbeing Centre, and in doing so there's a real opportunity to work with health to identify the health needs and ensure we have provision that's right for our communities. So plenty of ongoing work for us to do, so I'm going to leave it there. So opportunities for questions.
Thank you very much. I found that really interesting. I'm sure colleagues did as well. Are there any questions for the team from the floor? Councillor Whiting?
Thanks, Chair. I've got one specific one and one kind of overarching, well, maybe 2 overarching ones. Lance, you were saying about the people at risk of CVD, getting them into leisure centres for 3 months, and that's obviously great. Is there anything that we can do as a council to help them stay on if cost is a barrier? Because I'm guessing some of these people might find cost a barrier. Is there anything we could do there in terms of reduced memberships or anything?
Yeah, so part of the engagement we're doing is to find out what their needs are. So not only around their health, but obviously it may be around finances and other issues as well. So we offer concessionary memberships anyway. So if you're claiming benefits, you have that opportunity for reduced membership. But through the engagement, if there's more, I suppose, dire needs for people financially, the good thing is we'll start to learn about that. And one of the things we'll be doing is an evaluation of the programme. So, and part of that will be to identify, well, what is the need, and then think about how do we resolve that. So I think it's going to be through the work we do over the next 6 months. We've got 120 people we're looking to put through the programme, and that's just for the Arnold area. So we'll get a lot of insight from those individuals. So, as I said, the people identified by GPs in terms of health needs, but what we'll probably uncover is actually there could be other sort of community needs that they've got, and then it's how we respond to that. And it's similar as Helen was saying about the engagement with the young people. We've found out so much, it leads to ongoing work really with these individuals. So there may be more need, and I think we'll just need to understand that and decide what the next steps are and how we can work together, not as a council, but with our partners as well.
Please, thanks. So I guess the broad question is, this all seems to me like it's kind of a lot of preventative work that you guys are doing, which is absolutely brilliant. And I think, we're all aware of the pressures on the NHS. Has any work been done to kind of come up with a figure of how much money you think you're saving the NHS in terms of, preventative care? Because it seems to me like this work should be rolled out in every single community around the country. But if you guys could come up with a figure, then that always helps, doesn't it?
So that's a really big question, and it's an important question. And there is monitoring going on. And it's clearly the case that if we can keep people in the community, in their own homes, rather than going into secondary care, that's the direction we need to go. And the ultimate aim, but we've been working on this for a long time, is to reduce spending in the acute sector and reinvest, as you put it, in primary care and community care. And that's the direction of travel. That's why the examples that we've been sharing with you today are so important. But I'm not saying it's easy. It's pretty hard. We're under quite a lot of pressure to demonstrate that we are producing results. And an easy way of looking at that is looking at the number of elderly people coming into care and into hospitals. And we can measure that, and we're on that. And I hope over the next couple of years, we'll see some real progress. But I can see Helen is itching to get in, so let the professionals speak.
Crikey. So I would say exactly, it's really, really hard, as Paddy said, to sort of nail down things when they haven't happened. So we can certainly see the number of people coming into the emergency department and staying in hospital, but actually understanding what's preventing it. But what we are doing is trying to measure proxy measures. So what can we see that's changing from the work that we're doing? So one piece of work is looking at Your Health Knots, the integrated wellbeing service, by the 4 neighbourhoods that we're working in, looking at what the previous referral rates, but not just referral, those that completed the intervention and have continued to say quit smoking or reduce weight, and look at those trends as we work together to see if our collective work is nudging things in that direction. Things that Lance has described in terms of, are we getting more people into the leisure centre, and actually are those blood pressures reducing, the weights reducing, those kinds of things. But it's that balance between illustrating with case examples of groups of people making those changes and using the data. The system's got loads of data, but some of it doesn't always reflect what we're trying to show in a meaningful way. So it's the two things together.
If I just add something from a leisure centre perspective as well. So we've got a leisure management system. So obviously we record leisure users' information on that. And some of the benchmarking we can do on a national scale is to measure social value of that input. So we can engage with the Sport England provided infrastructure, data hubs, etc. So we're able to plug into that with a little bit of resource. And what that tells us is it will look at our demographics and it will show the measure of social value, in effect, that the savings on health that our participants have had on the community. So that shows the cost of type 2 diabetes or dementia and other diseases as well. So yeah, there are tools we can use strategically to measure some of that, hopefully, moving forward.
I suppose on the opposite side to that is if you're engaging with people who traditionally don't engage with statutory services, you're actually likely to also pick up more need. I mean, hopefully at an earlier time, but yeah, it's hard to measure it just in terms of stopping interaction with health services, because in some cases you want to increase them or bring them forwards. So I suppose I expect you've got lots of quality of life measures as well.
I think that's one of our aims, really, because some of the work that we've done both here and our partners have done in Mid-Knots in the city is actually a lot of communities have little trust in statutory services. So actually by working with our community colleagues, we're able to bridge that gap and actually get people the interventions and support that they need. Yeah.
Sorry, Councillor Ellis.
Yes, thank you, and thank you very much for that presentation, which I found inspiring and exciting. I'm very much in favour of community action and involving people in developing what they see as appropriate for their area. Now, if I can be a bit parochial, I was really pleased to see you actually identify Bestwood Miners Welfare, and that is a fabulous venue to hold all sorts of events and activities, and it's certainly available. And I'd be very, very happy to work with you to bring more events, activities to Bestwood Miners Welfare. I think that, you know, you're targeting areas of multiple need, and that's absolutely right. So Killysick, Netherfield, and so on. Again, being parochial, in my ward, there is an area where there isn't a venue. And it's very, very difficult, therefore, to set up something for those individuals when, you know, there's no building that they can actually go to. And I'd love to sort of have a conversation with yourselves about what we can do with regard to the gardens, which is the top end of Top Valley, and how we can bring services of this kind to the people in that area. Thank you.
So, Rachel, it's not very long ago that you and I were in Bestwood Miners Welfare, and I know the struggle has been to keep that centre open, and there's been real community engagement to keep it going. And I think there's a base there to go forward. And we're very clear that we don't just want to work in the Arnold area or in the Netherfield area, that's learning from those places that we can focus elsewhere. And we're also very clear that, in a sense, professional organisations, the public sector can't do it by themselves, and reaching deep down into the communities, involving local people, is really important. So I know Helen will get in touch with you to have a chat about what more we can do in Bestwood.
Thank you. So lots of us are involved in different community groups. So what's the best way to engage or to be available to you if you want to move into other areas?
I think Andy Oxnard is probably the best person because he's got all those lots of links already and would welcome working alongside you. Yeah, so we can share his contact detail.
Thank you. So are there any last questions or points? Well, in that case, I'll just say I'm sorry there weren't more of us here, but those of us who were have been thoroughly engaged. It was very interesting. Thank you very much for giving up your time to come and talk to us.
Well, it's quality, not quantity, that counts. Thank you.
Okay, so the next item on our agenda is our regular programme of scrutiny of portfolio holders. And tonight we have the leader of the council, John Clark, who's here to talk to us and for us to ask him questions.
Okay. You'll have to bear with me because there's a little bit on this, but it won't take more than about an hour. No, honestly. Right, you've asked me along, and thanks, Chair, for that. You know, I'm disappointed the main opposition are not here, but we've got them there, so just to confuse everybody. So I've got 9 areas of responsibility, and we'll go through each one of these in turn. Overall, this is 1, overall strategy, delivery of agreed council priorities and objectives. Year-end performance for 23-24 was reported to the Cabinet, that was on the 17th of July. It showed that 61 Gedling plan actions were completed out of 69, and the remaining 8 have been carried forward for delivery during 24-25. Out of the 28 performance indicators with set targets, 86% of these either met or exceeded targets. The annual report for 23-24 was also presented to the same Cabinet meeting, highlighting several achievements that Council had made in the year. For 24-25, we are about to adopt a new way of working that will remove individual service plans in favour of one outcome-based cross-service. Under plan is under the branding of Connected Council, so all Cabinet members will sit on the Connected Council Transformation Board and will oversee, alongside a director, one of the 4 sub-boards, being Customer Experience, Communities Programme Board, Smarter Working Programme Board, Gedling Growth Programme Board, and Depot Modernisation Programme. Just before I go on to do it, I think I'm just going to ask Mike, when I've done with this, that we perhaps sort of circulate it so everybody sees it. And I've got some idea of, because it is difficult, you know, there's a change strategy on at the moment, and it can get a bit bogged down when you're sort of listening to somebody rabbiting on like me and then trying to work it out for yourself. So I think this helps, or will help, so if we can do that. So, Chair, number 2 is the oversight of all Cabinet responsibilities. All Cabinet members provide a regular feedback on activity within the portfolio to me as leader. Delivery of projects and programmes of work are key. These do take time, as we must go through proper procurement routes. But these are finally starting to be delivered after the COVID delays. The focus now is on much larger strategic projects and programmes of work. For example, Greater Carlton Towns Board, Ambition Arnold, Strategic Leisure Review and Wholesale Digital Transformation Programme. And I'll just say something about the Town Board. I think we had 3 hours the other night in here, and we sent it back to the people who were bringing the recommendations, because everybody was fuddled in there, from Sir John Peace, who was chairing it, and everybody else that was around the table, including Paddy, who's just gone. So we've sent them back for more clarity on it, because there's a chance there for this 20 million. Whether it will be there, we don't know yet, till probably the budget or something like that. But it needs some clear clarity to show, because all sorts, we've had loads, I forget how many it is, there's lots and lots of people asking for all sorts of things out of it, which are not really going to be covered, so we need some clarity on it. Anyway, to deliver this, we must have absolute control over our finance. The medium-term financial plan reported to Council in March 24 clearly set out that we must find 3.5 million over the next 2 to 3 years. This will involve making extremely difficult decisions, including those that were previously unpalatable, but we do need to make them sooner rather than later to protect our dwindling reserves. So it's imperative we now really get into it, and with base budget review and all sorts of things going off at the moment, that we find where we can make those changes, because it doesn't look as if the new government are going to give us any money. That's highly unlikely, but we've got to find that 3.5 million. Doing nothing is not an option. I think I've heard that before. Was that Tony Blair in 97? Yeah, that's sort of those things ring, don't they? As echoed by both the external auditor and LGA peer review team, this is not a time for the political finger pointing, but it's also a time for working together in the interests of our residents. 3 is the building and developing relationship with partners. That's at a local, regional, national and international level to pursue matters of interest to the Council and the community. I'm committed to building these relationships. We are currently engaging with local universities to discuss how we improve learning, develop new job opportunities for our young people and adult residents. We're keen to develop a local skills strategy, are looking at ways to create a local college through the Greater Carlton Towns funding. And that's really tempting now, because if you know around the borough, we do not have any FE in this borough. We're not asking for a mammoth 6-storey thing. We're asking something that's focused in this borough, working with the universities, and already we are talking, Trent University in particular, to see if we can get one of their satellites that they've got, and see if we can get them into the borough. There are 1 or 2 places that might lend itself to that building at a reasonable cost. Health and wellbeing is another key area, and the Council is engaged with health colleagues as part of the integrated improvement plan and the South Notts Place-based partnership. We've also managed to attract local police response team into the Civic Centre. That's going to be really good, because it'll be about 130 coppers, is it? I don't want them all sitting at a desk in here, but they're going to be on that side. So Mike's kicked everybody into little boxes, and down at this other end, so they're all crammed in down there, but they'll be taking over that. And I think it'll help with the, obviously, security of Arnold, quicker response out of here, because we could have lost them, so there've been no response teams in the borough. So when they come in and they want some fancy showers or something, we'll have to put that in front of the post, won't it? Change from glasses and coats, isn't it? So they're moving in anyway very shortly, and I think it'll also deter some of the antisocial behaviour that we've got in the town and around and in this park. So, where are we? Civic Centre, they should take occupation early in the new calendar year. This can only help to strengthen our relationships with local police, crime commissioner, as he starts to develop programmes of work for the 4-year term in office. Item 4 is representing the interests of the council and the wider community on the local enterprise partnership, East Midlands councils and all key strategic local, regional and national bodies. The local enterprise partnership has now merged into the role of the new East Midlands County Mayor. All the districts and boroughs of Nottinghamshire and Derbyshire are working together to lobby the Mayor on key issues such as transport, housing, skills and adult education, net zero economic development and the visitor economy attached. For my part, I represent Gedling at all the mayoral devolution meetings and at the Economic Prosperity Committee alongside other council leaders. I'm also nominated district representative for the Investment Committee. I have nervousness about this. Is this going out on the screen? Live? Yeah, I have a nervousness about it because we're the little fish. We're the little fish because we're the district councils, and I feel, looking at the documents that have come out up to now, it seems we're going to be swamped by 2 cities and 2 counties. And so we really have to keep an eye on that. And, you know, proof will be in the pudding, whether, I mean, if we do get some money out of it, but we really do have to keep an eye on it because it's very difficult. We're down, and today was down as a non-voting member. What's the point in being there? You know, so it's something we need to look at, and whoever's running this council in the future, that they ought to be just keeping a close eye on it, making sure we get a fair return for this part of the East Midlands. The East Midlands is continuing. Councils continuing to add value and apply strategic influence to a number of key areas, including regional leadership on asylum and refugee settlement, influencing decisions on Network North and transport for the East Midlands, as well as having an input on local government issues such as the proposed planning reforms and early prisoner releases. And we've been active, and our office have been active, bearing in mind our small staff we've got in dealing with all those items that I've just mentioned. I think we can particularly be proud of what the refugee resettlement work we've done is second to none. Yeah, I think we did in three different countries. You know, certainly from from Syria in particular, from Afghan, and also we've helped several families. In fact, probably about 200 families now. Come here while the Ukraine problems are still going. So there's a lot of work gone into that. I've seen what some people have done. It's significant when you look at it. They're working way beyond their remit. Anyway, on item 5, oversight of the council's partnership collaboration agreements with key partners. And again, I've already discussed the role as the East Midlands Combined Authority, Economic Prosperity Committee, and the partnerships with local universities, police, and health bodies. And I must admit, the working with the universities, particularly the Trent University, we've had very close contacts, and we've had some success there, along with the police and health bodies. I also represent Gedling as part of the Industrial Communities Alliance and a chairperson of the APSI Strategic Forum on Climate Emergency. The alliance is something, the Communities Alliance, the Industrial Communities Alliance, is something left from the old days of the coalfields. It's very important. People say, well, we've got no coalfields now. We've got no power stations now. So we've got no coalfield. We have. There's significant funds that are still available, and they're working together and well recognised by governments of all persuasions. The same as the things that APSI do is well recognised. And if you look at the quality of their documents, it's absolutely, and you wanted some backup to something you were doing, then give them a ring or ask me and I'll get it for you, because they're very, very helpful. The council also partnerships with Citizens Advice, Gedling Play Forum and Phenomenal Futures, who do superb work in response to domestic violence, So, you know, pat on the back here for Gedling Platform and Phenomenal Futures, because and their citizens' advice, because I think we're the only council that actually contribute. There's not many contribute to the Citizens' Advice Bureau, but the Gedling Platform, you've seen that in action, and you have. Rachel's seen it on a regular basis, and phenomenal. If that's one of them words you can't get around. Futures, the work they do with domestic violence, you can dismiss it. So it's only domestic violence. But no, their in-depth work is incredible, and I would say one of the finest examples of work on domestic violence in this country. And I've seen it in other countries, and I've worked with police in other countries. They are exceptional and dedicated to it, far beyond the sort of expectation you'd think from a few people. Right, we're building and maintaining positive relationship, and that's between elected members and employees. All forms of scrutiny are encouraged. Happy that this committee are able to challenge each cabinet member in their capacity as a portfolio holder. Relationships between members and officers are good in general, with each cabinet member meeting directors and service managers on a monthly basis. For my part, I meet with the Chief Exec weekly and lead several member officer strategic working groups, such as the Leisure Review and Ambition Arnold. On item 7, promoting and encouraging effective corporate governance and the highest standards of probity. The Internal Audit Annual Report for 23-24 was presented to the Audit Committee in July. They reached a positive level of assurance, which demonstrated the work undertaken by the Council to strengthen its internal control environment. And it's best really giving a bit of a pat on the back, because the audits all over the country are not on time. They're all over the place, because there aren't, in this out of 70 million, are there, Olivia? A few auditors. And I sit on the Fire Authority, and it's the same on the County Council behind, but they are beginning to catch up, so credit to the people that work there. Council has approved a new risk strategy framework, which was presented to the Audit Committee in March, and again supporting an improved control environment. A new procurement strategy is being developed in line with proposed changes to the Procurement Act. The recent LGA peer review identified positive progress and highlighted the Council's commitment to sector-led improvement, honesty, openness and self-awareness. There are national problems with capacity for external, which I've just said there, such as the government have introduced backstop dates for December for audit write-offs. And so it's nothing mentioning, I suppose it's worth mentioning, it's gone up. It's massive now. The cost to the council for audits is absolutely massive. Still has to be found out of that budget, but I can tell you it's gone up in some areas, in some councils, 100,000 and more from where it was previously. And I deal with that because I do finance for the Fire Authority. So where are we? Audit sign-offs for financial years 21, 22, 22, 23, and expectation that 23-24 will be signed off by February 25. You will be aware that fraud is causing and progressing through the Crown Court is due for sentencing. The person involved is Wednesday. Reimbursements are sought through personal claims and insurance. We have also recently successful in recruiting an independent person and reserve independent person, plus a new independent person, and that's for the Audit Committee in line with best practice. Emergency planning and the arrangements have so far proved very effective through the management of the local resilience forum, with the senior officers supporting strategic, tactical and operational responses as situations, followed by a recovery stage if appropriate. And I'm hopeful, keeping fingers crossed, looking at monsoons coming down and that sky out there, that we don't get caught. I don't think there's not had any notices today anyway of anywhere flooding. Team are well advised, well versed in local flooding incident, with staff regularly checking the lagoons and grids for debris, blockages and rising water levels, and providing sandbags to residents where there is a risk of water entering the property. I'm particularly pleased because I did notice the other day when I was in County Hall that they're now putting more attention to the gullies. And if I can tell you, in the area I represent for this council in Netherfield, I think it's 80% of those gullies are blocked. When they're unblocked, it solves a lot of the problems. There's no doubt. I think you've got it, Russell, as well, in Collier Company, similar to it. 9, responding to the cost of living crisis, and this was covered at the last council meeting, but I will repeat here tonight. We do as much as we can in a tight financial environment, and we offer the following. We provide discretionary housing payments, and in 23-24 we distributed 184,000 in accordance with the eligibility criteria. We provide hardship relief to council taxpayers, and in 23-24 we granted 107,000 to our local residents. We look after our care leavers. In 23-24 we provided £214,000 of council tax support and offered free leisure centre membership. We continue to be one of only a handful, and I think it's less than a handful now, of councils that maintain a 100% council tax reduction scheme, meaning our most vulnerable residents are protected from paying any council tax. Thanks, Chairman. That's just a brief outline.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. I'm going to open it up for questions. I'd like to ask, for those of us who have wards within the Carlton town area, how is the best way for people to get any feedback or influence anything that's being discussed?
Dozens and dozens of applications. That's been whittled down, and I think within about 2 weeks' time we'll probably have a final list on that. But it'll be out, so about 2 weeks' time. So you'll be able to go through the channels, through the council, and try. I mean, some will be successful, some will be won't, but you don't get anywhere unless you use this, do you?
Are the meetings broadcast or any minutes available?
They're not. I mean, they were trying a bit of a shoebox thing last week because we were all crammed in that little room. So everybody's gone. Well, a lot of people have gone down with COVID or whatever, or colds and stuff. So no, they're not at the moment. I mean, they ought to be really. I'm not averse to it. I'd have every single meeting on the screen. But I mean, it's welcome, and it will be there for scrutiny as well. It might be then for the scrutiny committee to fetch the chair in, Sir John.
Chair, the minutes are published on the website, we can't stream them live.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Yeah.
Just on the same subject, I am concerned that the Carlton Town Board is unelected and not democratic and potentially unaccountable. So I was going to suggest that we ought to do this committee, have a report at every committee meeting, what's happened, what's going on, what projects are being looked at, that kind of thing. It should be a regular report to this committee.
I think that's a good idea, Andrew, because it's how you find out and what's going off. There aren't many people on there that's elected. There's myself and the MP, and that's about it. Sorry.
I applied to be on the board, but failed to make it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have anything to do with who's on the board. They're all, that's out of my hands. I just turn up like everybody else.
Thank you. We can add that to the work programme discussion. Yeah. Councillor Whiting.
Following on from the Carlton Town Board, John. So we've all put in obviously our, wish lists, and I imagine everyone in the borough has asked for everything that they ever could have possibly dreamed of. Yeah. So you were just saying the list is coming out, so that will be the kind of final, list of projects that will be...
Nobody was in agreement with what we were presented with last week, I'll be absolutely honest, because it didn't... even Paddy was saying, I don't quite understand this, and it wasn't clear, so it's gone back to the people who are putting this together to say, come on, what do we want? And it's very difficult, because you were actually trying to put a plan together. And it's not unlike when we did the GAR, the Area Relief Road, when we came in, was it 2011? We wanted a plan for that. We got a plan, and we got probably 3/4 of the money then. So if we've got a plan and everybody else has sat back and said, well, we might not get the money. So we're just driving on. Hopefully we'll get the money, but I don't know if there's enough money in the pot. But if you've got a plan there and it's ready, then we'll have to, cut a cloth, I suppose, to it, till we get some direction from government. Lots hinging on this October budget and everything else. But we have written to, who is it, Alex Norris. We've written to him to stress that we need to know, because there's some really, although they're not democratically elected, I don't feel there's a politics in the whole of the 25, 26 members that are on it. I feel as everybody wants to try and get something done. There was a bit of a problem when we decided to stretch the borders a bit of where it was. Some people wanted like 20 million spent just in the centre of Carlton, and you could do it. You could spend 20 million on our road. Well, not our road because it's been redone, but another road, that type of thing. But they are working now to get and really putting, it goes on, and it's quite interesting. We've got everybody from the Youth Council on there. Not everybody from the Youth Council, but we've got the Youth Council input, we've got the input from the elderly, we've got Paddy's vast experience as a former MP and a police guy, we've got all sorts of different people on there. And I would say every single one of them is pushing to come up with a plan. And having Sir John Peace, Chair, has been absolutely brilliant. Sir John is, people say, oh, he's a rich guy, he's this, that, and the other. Sir John's very level-headed, has tremendous amount of contacts, and is using that. And whether you know or not, he was actually started Experian, if you think of Experian, started in the back streets of Carlton. And he's absolutely determined that we get something out of this, and he's putting a lot of his personal time into it.
Yes.
Sorry, I've got a couple more, I'm afraid. Emergency planning, I think you're right that it works very well at the minute, but obviously we're going to need more of it moving forward. Climate breakdown, has it ever stopped raining for the past 2 years? And we're now going into winter again where there's going to be flooding. So is that, I don't know the right way to say it, not that, it's not business as usual, but are there plans to increase that capacity that we've got working with the county? And
I mean, they work through the partnership with the county and other people, whereby if somebody else has flooded and we're not, we'll send people to help there. We've got a very large pump, which is a massive pump that we take down to Collick to protect Collick. We don't have to, but we do. But I think you're quite right. I think it's a really good point to bring, especially for a scrutiny committee. What are we going to do? What if some idiot starts chucking bombs about? What happens? You really got to plan for all sorts of eventualities. I'm constantly asking Mike, I'm constantly asking the staff, are we flooding today? If I've asked that many people, are we flooding? And if just a caretaker says, oh, watch out, he lives in Mapley. He says the water's building up in Woodborough, so whether he's been out on his bike or not, I don't know. But we need to keep a close eye, and we need to, as members, really play our part and report those things in. So one of the things is, we've got to get this drains right, and the County Council have finally woken up on it. And to be fair, where they have emptied those gullies, and they're really solid, they've emptied those gullies, the drains, even though they may be Victorian, they're actually working, and they do get rid of a lot of it. And it's similar to when, if you remember, we had towards the end of the century, some warm years, and then people, you could see them trot down, chuck it in the dike, cut the edges, cut the trees, done this, that, and the other. And consequently, that brought problems. Now that's been cleared, the dikes are cleared. And I know in Netherfield, when I first got elected there, I think we had flooding 3 times in 7 years, serious flooding, where people's homes really damaged. But since we put the grids on, since we watched them, and it was in there about the inspection of the grids, I don't think we've had any real problem. Hughes Dyke is a problem at the moment, which is around facing Jubilee Park. That is we're about to start putting some remedy work on that. And that, again, seems an unfair judgment. It's a bit like church walls. Church wall falls down, we've got to pay for it. Not the diocese, we pay for it. Well, if the Hughes Dyke falls in, of course, what's that, Mike? That's ripenery, yeah, ownership. So we end up we've now got a bill of 100,000. Suddenly got to find. But that seems to be, and certainly be lobbying MP on that one. Get this altered because it's a bankrupt small council. But anyway, that work's going to be carried out. But yeah, I think it's an ideal thing for scrutiny, and I think it's something for questions to me or to Deputy or whoever who's to be more responsible for that portfolio. What we do.
Sorry, just 2 more. I think you said in your speech it wasn't a time for political finger pointing, but indulge me to point a political finger, because we've had 14 years of austerity from the last lot, and they're not here tonight to even try and defend themselves, that ripped the guts out of local councils at every level, and this one I know wasn't immune, and we all know that. Have you had any indication from the new government, not the MPs, but a government minister. Have you had any contact with the new minister? Any indication of whether there might be an extra penny coming?
Contact. Not, you know, from all over, and it's frustrating. I say we feel as though we're a very tight. I know we're small fish really, but there are 120,000 people rely on our services and the work we do. We've not had anything. I think once it all settles down after this conference season, those types of things, I think they'll get on, because we will have to recognise that the dire states that we're in, as all councils, and it's all persuasions. And I go to the LGA, and believe you me, some of the strongest lobbyists here are people from not the governing party, from Labour. It's the others all asking, and you can't do everything, but there is problems stacked up, as you say. I don't want to go on about 14 years, leave them to argue on that. But there's a clear fact, and we've got a figure in that. Out of all those words, figure is 3.5 million, and it's got to be found before the next election, which is 2 years and 7 months, is it? It's not long, and I won't be here.
And this is the last one, I promise. How is Cabinet functioning, and how is the role of Deputy Leader and Leader of the Council functioning since the election, now that Councillor Payne is an MP and Deputy Leader? How has that changed? Because it's inevitably changed. So could you tell us how it's changed and what the challenges are, please?
Yeah, I mean, that does present a challenge, and we'll have to deal with it. I'm sure it will be dealt with soon. I think the whole idea of people, and they will stand down, there's no doubt about it. You can't do it. You'd be dead doing all these different jobs for all sorts. But I think it needs to be done sensibly. I should have a whole raft of by-elections, and I'm trying to avoid losing, if we're not losing a by-election, I'm trying to avoid having too many by-elections, because it'll cost a serious amount, and we haven't got it in the budget. And we had a decision at planning the other night, which I'm told went wrong. It was changed, and now it's going to cost us 20,000 in fees. So, trying to find all this money all the time. I suddenly landed that thing I mentioned about the Hughes Dyke, 100,000, that's got to be found. And there's loads of different things that pop in, and sometimes you can make a saving, but it is, back to your question there, yeah, when we see Michael and we get sorted out, it'll be changed. I'm sure the group will be. I don't pick it. The group pick the Deputy Leader. Thanks.
Councillor Brocklebank.
It's just one for me, hopefully. Yeah. So it's about I'm going bigger, so it's about the East Midlands Combined Authority, because I agree I have the same concerns about that we're a small fish when it comes to the Combined Authority, and we've got to make sure that our voice is heard in that environment. And I suppose one of the other things that, I don't know if other people in this room have had a similar thing, that I think one of the issues is that the understanding from the general public about what the Combined Authority is and its role hasn't really got there yet. And I was just wondering if you had any ideas about how we help people to better understand what the Combined Authority is, and then that helps us to then use our voice more loudly in the room.
Yeah, because I'm like you, I was very nervous of it, but we were given no other game in town. We were, in effect, we were pushed into it. I'm more than willing, as a person who will give way quite a bit. I'll wait for a year's time, but I'm not frightened of taking on in my case, my own government, or the role of the mayor. The one thing I have got a nervousness about is if the Sun decided to give a precept in, and it was never taken out, so the mayor could precept, and that could be quite a dangerous thing in that way. Yeah, you've got to get things done, but if somebody comes along also, it's like we see today the power station's closing. It's going to tell a hell of a lot of money to get that off the ground, but there's land there, and if you look at the different things, it's between the two counties really, and probably it's more in Leicestershire. We can make a lot out of that, but if suddenly there isn't money to do it, it'll just stand there derelict. But I'll keep you informed on it, because I am very nervous at the moment as to what's going to happen with it, because we're down, even on the main board, the main actual council, there are only 2 representatives from the council. And if you can't have a say, that's grossly unfair. We can have a say, but nobody listens.
Councillor Strong.
Thank you, Chair. I'm conscious I'm the last-minute sub from the bench, but I do have a question about the town fund, which you might have already have answered and I've missed it. You mentioned applications, lots of applications. Are they still coming in? That's question one. And are the applications detailed and costed, or are they just ideas?
They came in through the website, didn't they? On the consultation, yeah. Yeah, I don't know if it's still coming in, whether it's stopped now. Stopped at the moment.
There was a closing date and there was a process to follow.
Can I just add, Chair? I mean, yes, we held a consultation event, and we've got to make it clear here, it's not the council. The town's fund is paid to residents, for residents. All we are is the protector of the money, basically. We don't have any influence as councillors or a council. It's the board members who are deciding where to spend it. We may disagree with them, but as long as it's legal, that's where our responsibility sits.
Yeah, yes,
so the town's board did do a consultation inviting a number of projects to be submitted. We did ask them to put proper costings and timescales on. Some came in appropriately and some didn't. So at the moment, as the leader said, we've had about 80 applications or suggestions. We employ Mutual Ventures at this point in time, who are our consultants, who are sifting through those to try and make the best of the proposal. So that's sort of the position we're in, and we should get that feedback in the next 2 or 3 weeks.
Yes, thank you. I understood that. I just wondered if the consultation, I thought the consultation was slightly different, and just the consultation, not an application system, but thank you for the explanation. I was thinking you were being submerged in further things coming in.
When the list gets firmed up, I think then, and if you see something there that you might tap into, then that can be brought forward. What I will add is nobody on that board of 25, 26 people, no one gets a penny for doing it. All the money goes. And I think I've said in here before, we got 50,000, the government took, the last government, took 500,000 for administration, yet we're doing the administration, so we're probably losing out on that, aren't we?
Thank you. Any other questions? No. So thank you very much, Councillor Clark. And if you're willing to share your presentation, that'd be helpful.
The chair is that. I think we need to give more. So we'll get a paper that's sent out to not only yourselves but all councillors.
The people who weren't able to be here.
Those that attend anyway, not that. The empty benches over there.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Okay, so we're on to item 6, and that's the Risk Management Q1 update, and Chief Executive Mike Hill is going to present this item.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick update tonight, because things are changing. The leader already mentioned we have a new risk management strategy and framework, and we are currently working towards that. Part of that link with the digital transformation is a whole new electronic system that we're going to manage the risks on. Unfortunately, migration hasn't quite happened as quickly as we expected. So as a consequence, Q1 is more of a verbal update, but we will, and we are hopeful that Q2 we will have the system working, and you'll see it in a brand new format, and all guns blazing and flashing things, and everything should be really smart. So we're also in a process, obviously we've just got a new management structure approved, and so we're moving the risks around between the new members of staff as well. So that's the reason why Q1 is as you see it today, which is very brief. What I can report is there's been a number of changes in the last quarter. So risk 1 is about budget overheating once the budget has been set. So this is all about budget monitoring. Q1's budget monitoring was reported to Cabinet on the 5th of September. And I do say Q1, but I really mean 4 months, because we're trying something different now. We're trying to go 3 times a year, every 4 months, to see how we do it. And that frees up time to do the budget process come December, January as well. So it's pleasing to show that we did have a balanced budget at period 4. However, once again, as reported in last year, there were significant overspends highlighted in the Environment Department. This is again the cost of vehicle repairs. We have ordered new, say, refuse vehicles, but they do take between 9 and 12 months to appear. So meanwhile, we're having to repair them and spend a lot of money on those. Clearly, sickness is an issue as well with an ageing workforce. And we are spending significant amounts of overtime and agency costs as well to get us through the process. What we are pleased with is we've talked about a new waste system for quite a while now. Things are now progressing to such a stage that we're about to go to market on that. That should really help us improve the service. It should have in-cab technology. It should tell us when a bin is due to be collected from somebody's front door, so an assisted collection basis. So at the moment, we have nothing. We have bits of paper, and it's embarrassing to say that, but that's where we are. So we're relying on drivers' memories to remember which houses need assisted pull-outs. And clearly, we are getting 1 or 2 more complaints on that basis because things are happening like that. So it's apologies to everybody, the residents, the members in the wards, but we are doing those improvements. And I know we've promised them for the last 2 or 3 years, but we're on the cusp of getting it sorted now. So hopefully then we'll be able to streamline the rounds. And again, equally, that should cut down the costs of everything and all things associated with those rounds. So the second risk is the long-term picture. It's the medium-term financial plan about failure to maintain financial integrity. We did have a Cabinet away day at the end of July. As the leader's already said, 3.5 million is a massive target we've got to find. No decisions are easy. Everyone involves pain. And we're talking through those at the moment. We've got a number of proposals. Some are being discussed in the background, argued on, let's be fair, it's not easy. And I wouldn't want John's job in a million years for the decisions and discussions that's got to follow. The Cabinet needs to get in a position where they'll recommend tough choices, and it's even harder then because it comes to all council members to agree those tough choices. I suppose with my financial hat on, if you don't make those choices, we're in dangerous territory like a number of other councils across the country. So, that's the choice at the moment. None of you are in this game to make cuts, but unfortunately that's the position we are in. So, I can only sit here and say we're in these difficult situations, but it is members and yourselves who have to make those decisions or obviously face the interventions that other council have had in 2 or 3 years. So that is our biggest risk, that one, as I'm sure you'll appreciate. The third one, failure to protect staff, including health and safety. I've already mentioned the issues in the Environment Department. We have a new chap in at the moment who's helping us out. He's really skilled, very experienced person. He's on loan, if you like, if we're talking football terms, from Veolia, one of our really key partners. He's doing a superb job bringing it up to date. He's single-handedly updated about 300 risk assessments. So that must be really boring for him as well, but he's been absolutely superb, and we're trying to keep him as long as we can. Clearly, we've got the new Director of Operations starting in 3 weeks' time, and we can't wait for Charlie to join us. And we hope to have a crossover between Nick, who's the Veolia chap, and Charlie as well. But we really are driving through these improvements, or we will be once Charlie starts. The fourth one is around recruitment and retention of staff. I've already mentioned the senior management restructure. So this feels a lot better now. Hopefully Rob will nod as well to say we feel like we've got more management support. We will have more boots on the ground, and we can start really developing and thinking about the strategies of how we need to get ourselves positioned in the future. So I think that one should relatively shortly see a downward trend on risk 4. Risk 5 is about ICT, technology. Again, I've already mentioned we've got this huge digital transformation programme. We built 2 million into the medium-term financial plan to aid this. We've now got the team in place, and they are starting to work on this. So again, those risks should start to drop in the next 6-12 months as new systems are rolled out, new processes and everything else. And also the things like cybersecurity, they've been fully review now, and we're working on mitigations as we speak. And then finally, number 6, failure to react to changes in legislation. We were, if you remember, on the council papers due to bring changes to the contract procedure rules. Since the government's got in, they've decided to defer the introduction of the new Procurement Act, so it was due to start tomorrow, 1st of October. They've deferred it now to the end of February next year. So we withdrew that paper to see what happens in the next 6 months, and then it will be coming probably March time again. So that risk around procurement still exists until, you know, the new legislation is approved next February. So I'll leave it there, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions on? Nope. We've escaped. So, next item then is an update on the Contacts magazine, and Rob McCleary is here to present that to us.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everybody. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Rob McCleary. I'm the Communications and Marketing Manager here at Gedling. I've been here now for 20 years in December, and this is my first opportunity in all those years to come and present to the committee. So thank you for the opportunity, I guess. I've been tasked with giving you a bit of an update on Contacts magazine. I understand it came from one of the councillors on the committee, I think Councillor Brown, asked for an update. So here we are. So I am not going to go through this. Hopefully you've had a chance to read the report. I'll pick out a couple of key highlights and then answer any questions. So just a bit of background. We produce a magazine called Contacts. It goes out 3 times a year. It's spring, summer and winter. It's one of the council's communication strategy. One of the key objectives is to keep residents informed about what we're doing, and the magazine is a key strand towards that. We produce 55,000 copies, and it goes out to most of the residents in the borough. It costs, at the moment, £36,000 per year. Hot off the press, I've literally had an email from Royal Mail today saying it's going up. So slightly going up in cost. So that is the cost as of this morning, but it's gone up again since I even printed this out. And that's gone up 33% since 2017. We do sell advertisements in the magazine, and over the last 2 quarters, we've sold £1,800 of advertising. Probably what isn't clear in this report is that we do have rates of £1,000 per page for private, but for what we call partners, there is a 50% reduction. So at most, a full page would cost £500, and that tends to be we tend to get advertising from partners. We do have an online a channel and approach. We now have 40,000 subscribers to our email newsletter, and of those, 14,000 residents get the latest news. So that is another key element of us getting information out to residents. We are just working on the magazine as we speak. It's just at the fun part now where we're doing the proofing and finding all the mistakes that I've made in the writing of the edition. So luckily I've got a good team who find all those for me. So we're just about to put that together with a view of getting it out for just before the Christmas events. We have carried out surveys over the years. In 2016 we had a very good response, with over 80% of people who did respond say they read it. However, unfortunately, the most recent survey we took in 2023 only had 45 responses. So what I probably will add as a caveat is that we did have an incentive for that one in 2016, but we didn't have the budget for one. So you can probably put those two together there. The magazine is distributed through the National Leaflet Company, which won a procurement bid. I suspect, obviously I'm not speaking on behalf of Councillor Brown, but one of the reasons I may have been asked to present this is that we do have issues with the magazine. It does not go to every single household. I'm sure that might be raised as a question, and I can go into more detail if required, but I'll just for now give you this brief overview. So we are aware some properties don't get don't get the copies. From what I have kind of to present, it's not the purpose of this committee, I understand, but I thought rather than just bring a problem, I'd also just give you some ideas of some of the solutions that we can bring, because the magazine is a hefty cost to my department, to the council. we are always looking at different ways. So I thought it might help you just to bring some potential options. Not asking you to approve those options, just to be clear, that would have to go through the normal process of the cabinet portfolio. But I've put in here some options for the future. We can stay as we are, and as I say, that budget will need to be increased by 10%, and probably now that I've had that email this morning, slightly more than that. The other option is that we could reduce the magazine to potentially 2 editions a year, which would save financially. And then the other option is to produce a fully digital approach. We have had other councils that are way ahead of us on some of these options, and they don't tend to go with the digital-only approach because of some of our hard-to-reach residents. So it's on there because I thought it'd be helpful to bring you all, and you may have other ideas. So that is it, very much in a very quick overview of the magazine, and happy to take any questions that you have.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Ellis is first up.
Yes, thank you for this report. It was an interesting read. I mean, personally, I appreciate getting the Contacts magazine, but I also appreciate the cost in the light of current sort of budgetary difficulties. As I was looking at your option 3 and just sort of mulling it over in my mind and thinking, well, we need to learn the lesson that with regard to the bins timetable, and that caused a certain amount of dissonance, didn't it, out there? So there is an issue about sort of preparing the ground before you do things like that. And it did occur to me that if we were clearer about an opt-in strategy, so that people knew what to do if they actually did need a paper copy, we might be better placed. But clearly these decisions need to be made in other places. I'm just offering a comment.
I think page 2 of the magazine that's going out in winter is a big full page about how we're bringing the bin calendars back. So yes, we're fully aware that I think to remove the paper copies completely would be quite a significant issue for many of our residents, but it's not really for me to decide at this point. But we don't have enough data. I mean, like I say, the surveys are not, we haven't done them for a while in like we do, say, for example, the survey that goes out to residents just about the council. And we do ask a question in there about how well informed they feel, but it probably doesn't go to enough lengths to kind of gather whether people still want to get a paper copy. So yeah, there's no kind of easy question. I'm pretty sure if we were to stop sending it out, you councillors would know about it, I'd assume. So, but maybe reducing it from 3 to 2 might still have that impact.
I'm just going to make a comment there. I think it depends how you do it and the communication that goes out around it. I'm sure if we're getting to the point of having to make the cuts that Councillor Clark alluded to, and you gave people almost like those options, that you might find people become less attached to a paper copy if it meant their bin was going to be collected more often or something like that. So sometimes people have shorter memories than we think, I think. I mean, I did wonder if other things that went out, if things could go out together, like when the council tax reminders go out or something. Is that more cost effective to try and limit things to going out altogether?
It's technically possible, but I think there are issues with certainly with the council tax being, because they're addressed. But my understanding, it have been looked at, but it's not been looked at for a long time. But it's not as straightforward to get the magazine out with the council tax. I'm not sure. I don't want to start. I'm not sure what the legislative issues are, but there might be. E-billing, of course, yeah, and so that is another issue, is that we're trying to reduce the actual paper bills that go out. But without passing the book, I am about to pass the book completely and say, fortunately, I don't, the budget side of things, I don't have, it's something that Mike and the senior leadership team are looking at.
So I had Councillor Whiting. Is it just one question?
Just one, I'm afraid. Yeah, sorry, Rob. I'm sure I'll think of others. Just on under 1.4 for your time scale, you've got a deadline for articles Friday the 16th of August, but then it's distributed on Monday the 4th of November. That seems quite a long stretch in between. And it just reminded me of a leaflet that I once had printed standing in front of a lovely clean wall. And by the time I had put the leaflet out, someone had graffitied it. So is there anything that can be done to kind of squeeze that timeline a bit? And is there space in the timeline for emergency stuff, for want of a better phrase, to go in there, like the winter fuel allowance stuff that we were talking about at last council, for example?
Yes, hopefully there's no officers watching this at home, because I put that deadline in knowing that they'll never meet the deadline that I asked for. It's just more so that I can, because I have to plan the magazine. We have 32 pages and we need to fill. So by putting the call out, I mean, to be absolutely honest, we already kind of know what the magazine's going to be pretty much as we start writing it, but it's a call out in case there's anything I don't know about, which I'd like to think is rare. So that is a live thing that we will be putting stories in or taking stories out right up until the day we go to print. So it's more just of if I don't put a deadline in, I'll probably get a response the day after it goes to print. So we try and keep it, we do have a small little T's and C's in there that says, at time of print, but yeah, we try and make sure that, I'm today I've taken an article out. It just doesn't work anymore and things have changed. So yes, we try and keep it so that when they get it, it is difficult because it takes 4 weeks to write. It then takes, you've got 2 weeks to print and then another 2-3 weeks for distribution. So there is that month. I mean, I think my worst thing was the pre-election period and when the election was called and we were just like, the whole magazine has just gone out the water. So we had to, worry about that, but it's just part of the editorial process. But yeah, that deadline is more just for me so that officers give me something.
I thought, yeah, Councillor Brocklebank.
Thank you. It was just a question or a comment actually, that if it was to go down to twice a year, then the timescales that you put in around, or the dates, just to say that I think that is a sensible approach, because I think the key dates for the magazine to go out are probably like the pre-summer holidays and then, crucially, the pre-Christmas stuff, because that's the detail, I think, in the magazine that I know from talking to residents is the things about what happened during the school summer holidays, or the events that are then going on over Christmas. People still use the magazine as a bit of what's going on in the area, especially those key areas. So I think that's the bits that's important, that if it does go out in winter, it's almost that November time, so then people are planning what they're going to do, and it kind of makes sure that it feels like a living document, I guess, for people.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think when we've looked at producing it to, down to 2, that kind of pre-summer and pre-Christmas, there are kind of, especially for the council's point of view, they're our largest events. I suppose the only issue is that there'll be some events that maybe are missed or that are too far, but I think, in a sensible approach, we do tend to have most of our events in the summer and just we have to get it out before the Christmas lights switch on, which again, as councillors, you will be aware, they can be quite complicated. Just getting a date for a switch on is sometimes not that easy. So yes, I think that would make sense, because the spring one can sometimes be a little bit of we struggle a little bit with content because we've done all the big things. So yeah, I think that would be a sensible approach.
Thank you.
And then I did have one more, which was just around I've always done surveys and engagement for a number of years, so I have that same issue of that lack of take-up with surveys, and that the incentive is always the key. And it was just whether there's an option in future of trying to get any of our partners in the private sector to maybe help to put that incentive forward, so it doesn't have to come out of our budget, but everyone's being squeezed the same way. So I recognise that's not easy, but an option for the future. We're
squeezing our private friends quite. So the Pride of Gedling Awards, for example, they're fully sponsored now, and what I probably didn't mention in here is that the £1,800 advertising we get is is here, but as part of the Pride of Gedling packages where, for example, the platinum sponsors pay £2,500, they get a full page advert. So it does contribute, but it's trying to put this in a report, and I try to keep it simple. So we do get them to contribute where we can, but yes, I'm sure what we are noticing is something that it's getting really difficult to get money now from sponsorship. So the advertising, it's not really touching the size in terms of the cost of the magazine, and we're seeing that paper magazines are just being reduced. When we approach the private sector, all partners, they're not really that fussed about paper at the moment.
Councillor Allen?
I'm going to ask the question about deliveries. When I saw this was coming up on the committee, I circulated this amongst some members of the community in Portchester. I represent Portchester. And I was a councillor in 2011, and I remember people in Portchester then, in that term, were sort of complaining about non-delivery. And I wondered how you investigate complaints regarding non-delivery, and whether it's located in certain areas, whether it's areas that aren't covered by Royal Mail, because I know Portchester, because the way the postcode works, it includes a city, so it can't be delivered by Royal Mail. So I wondered if you could. And another thing is, do you ever follow up with people who complain about non-delivery and use them in a sense as a secret shopper kind of thing?
Yes, thank you, Councillor. So yes, you're spot on. In the report, we have the Royal Mail who deliver to sectors. And if you imagine our Gedling map, there's squares that go across all. They have no boundaries. They don't really, they're not interested in borough ward maps, but they have sectors. So if you can imagine within Gedling, they can deliver into the sectors, and then they kind of outside these sectors, they do a hand delivery. However, where it gets messy, it always seems to be on the border. So what we've started to gather over the last couple of years with more kind of investigation, our issue was that we had to get a more up-to-date kind of street listing, almost door to door, so that we could present to the distribution companies. And what we've discovered is there is just that issue, and I think Portchester would be an example where it's just on that border, there is a street which starts at Gedling and ends in the city, and that seems to be where we have the issues. When we in the last year, we've got really down to the crux of where these areas are. And when we said to the distribution company, can you deliver? They've said, no, our teams can only deliver to these, and that's what you're quoted for. The other option, which again I mentioned in the report, is we could do these addresses we could post them. So we'd have to address them and stamp each one. And that would be another cost of £3,000 per year. Again, that was the cost this morning, that's gone up today. So, and then to answer your second question, any reports that we get the address, and if we get the address and the postcode, we send it to the company, and they, to be fair, give us a very detailed response back. They have trackers on all of their, depending on if it's Royal Mail, we'll get a type of response, but then if it's a tracker on the teams, they have GPS, and they literally watch, that they can give me a report to say they went up. It is not by any stretch perfect. I live right in the centre, in Arnold, and I got 2 copies in the door on the first delivery that we'd had when we'd done the procurement. So you can imagine my frustration. But they were able to give me an answer. They had one team guy walk past, and then the other one, they just hadn't spoken to each other. But then I was thinking, so how many people on that road have got 2 copies? And more importantly, where are those copies that should be? So it's not perfect. We used to have systems where we had staff doing it, but that was just untrackable at all. And as nice as it might be to think, get your staff to do it, there was more issues in. So I am conscious that it's an issue. What I would say is, and again, although I've just said that I'm not in charge of the budget, something I'd probably propose to Mike is that if we did reduce the magazine, we probably would invest in the extra, those to deliver by Royal Mail, because whilst we saved the 12,000 to invest, let's say, the 3,000 into that might improve. So let's get it right across the borough, basically. That would be a proposal. So I'll put Mike on the spot there with the budgets. But that might be an option. And again, this will all be subject to reports that will go to SLT and Cabinet and a portfolio sign-off.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I was a bit sad that the people who asked for the report weren't here, but the rest of us found it very interesting. You're welcome to stay or to go home.
I think I have got a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old, and I can tell, I'm going to actually, yes, stay now. I better go if it's bath time, I believe. But thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you. So the next item is the draft annual report. Emma was not able to be here today, so she's asked if we've got anything to add to it. There are a couple of things that I'd already considered. So one of those was around perhaps having a list of the partners that we've had come in to present to us, because that wasn't included. And the other one was whether to include something about when we trialled having the meeting in the other room to have a more round table format, and that the reason we couldn't go ahead with that was because the technology wasn't able to cope, the audiovisual technology wasn't able to cope with the set out of the room. So those were the two things I'd thought might be useful to put in there. Have people had a chance to look at it now, or if not, you can email any additional thoughts to Emma. She gave me a deadline. She's got to send it to council for the 13th of November, so she needs it pretty quickly. Nothing else now? No, that's fine. And then the last item then is the Scrutiny work programme. So we've already had a request to invite the Carlton Town Board. Was everyone in agreement with that? Yeah. I assume we can't invite the mayor, can we? The regional mayor?
Sorry, but I was asking for a regular report to the committee, not just a scrutiny of the town, not inviting them to one meeting.
Yes, sorry, I did mean what you'd suggested, but I didn't express it like that. So, yes, can we make a note of that, Kate, please? Yeah. And can we find out if we are in a position to scrutinise the mayor? That would be good to know. Any other thoughts, Councillor Ellis?
Well, I was just thinking we could ask the mayor to sort of focus down. I mean, given the comments, by Councillor Clark, to focus down on what is happening from the mayoral point of view in Gedling Borough, and what comments they can offer with regard to the actions of the mayor and their support.
Yes, please do.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, thank you, Mayor. Chair, yes. We have written to the Mayor twice to invite her here, but no response so far, but I'm sure she's incredibly busy. I do know from the team behind her, they are all interim at the moment and they are going through recruitment, so I think any day they should be getting a permanent chief exec and then other members of staff accordingly after that. I think all districts, because we meet regularly as leaders and chief executives, they do recognise that communication is fairly poor at the moment. So they have took that on the chin and are about to consider a strategy around communications to try and improve that. That was probably one of the questions that came earlier for Councillor Clark. I think the money, like us all, 30th of October is the Chancellor's review, and I think the Mayor, like us all, is waiting for that announcement to firm things up. But yes, what Councillor Clark didn't mention, and again, I can't share it because I think it's still confidential, but as chief execs and leaders, we've been meeting regularly to sort of prepare a joint ask of the Mayor. So we've come up with this document as of last week, which is a prospectus for partnership working with the Mayor. So all districts, 15 of us, 8 in Derbyshire, 7 in Nottinghamshire, have put this together. And it's like a document we want to approach the Mayor with. So what we do know is she's not interested in individual council projects. She wants big strategic stuff that make an absolute difference to Nottinghamshire, Derbyshire, So this is very high level around transport, housing, skills education, net zero, economic development, and the visitor economy. So we're putting a number of asks here as districts and boroughs to the mayor. Whether she accepts it, ignores it, embraces it, we'll wait and see. But that's sort of position we are in at the moment. So I wouldn't be hopeful that she would attend a meeting, but there's no harm in asking. So thank you, Chair.
Councillor Brocklebank.
Just say that it probably makes sense to invite her, if it is possible, if she responds, but for some time, like the middle of next year, when she's actually had a year in the post almost, and she'll hopefully have a steady team around her. And also, we can always say that if she's not able to attend, she can always send a representative, because we're always happy to talk to anyone, aren't we?
Have you got all that, Kate? Thank you. Any other points? No. I've not been notified of any other business unless somebody's got anything urgent now. No. Well then, thank you very much for attending, and the meeting is now closed.